Wonderful. So, yes, here we are again. Welcome everyone to our drop-in meditation session. I'm so excited. It's a very special one today. We had a few guest teachers in the past, and today we managed to get Timothea Goddard providing us with some time and joining us in a moment, which is really lovely. Before I get Timothea on the screen, let me just again say how deeply grateful I am for this growing community and that you're all part of this community, knowing that this is a way that you look after yourself, but also contributing to your communities and the world. I really think we make a difference by getting together in this particular way, sitting together, being in this togetherness and supporting another by cultivating the practice of mindfulness, of course, and compassion, of course, not only on the cushion, but also weaving it into our day-to-day activities. There is so much and beyond, and it's wonderful to know that you're here right now. If you're not attending this live session right now, but playing it back, I hope you get a lot out of it. And if there are any questions bubbling up, you're always welcome to emailing me the questions, and then I will come back to you. If you're live here today, so the way how we do it, I will introduce Timothea and I will offer a few questions, and Tim will hopefully respond to the questions. And if there are some for you bubbling up, you can use the chat function here and just type them in there. And the second part, it's really lovely that Tim will be guiding us through a meditation practice, and then we will have a bit of time to wrap it up together. So please don't hesitate, make use of the chat function here, and we'll take it from there. Well, let me welcome Timothea Goddard, and let me get Tim on the screen whilst I'm introducing Timothea Goddard. It's a recognized pioneer in bringing MBSR to Australia over the past 15 years or even longer. And this is just amazing that Tim has done this great work and bringing it to Australia and has taken off from there. She's an MBSR teacher through the Center for Mindfulness, and some of you have heard of John Kabat-Zinn, for example. You know, they're all part of this community, which is a lovely thing, and it's very good to know. And she really maintains a strong professional link with that international community, which is important. So, you know, Australia is quite isolated in the way. It's important to keep all the links up and up to date and in this work. Timothea works also in private practice for many years, more than 30 years, as a psychotherapist, educator, and workplace trainer, and has trained in humanistic, psychodynamic, body-based psychotherapy, as well as done some comprehensive training, and of course, MiCBT as well, ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, Breathworks, and also participated in the .B program and mindfulness schools. So really, you know, very broad knowledge and expertise that we can check in today. And also, which I didn't know that, Tim, that you're also an accredited yoga teacher with a specialist training in trauma-sensitive yoga. That makes me really curious, and to hear maybe a little bit more. And of course, for people who have not met Timothea, she is the director of Open Ground Australia and also the founding director of the Mindfulness Teaching Institute of Australia and New Zealand. Would that be correct? And let me add one more thing. Timothea was also featured and aired. You might have seen her on the screen, maybe by attending a course with Timothea. It's a lovely expert and teacher in the field, but you may have seen her in one of those documentaries like the ABC Catalyst show that was aired, I think, last year. It was called The Mindfulness Experiment. And also recently, some of you might know the Australian journalist Shannon Harvey, who has aired her second documentary called A Year of Mindful Living. And I think, Tim, you've been an expert on that show as well. So wonderful. And thank you so much for being here today.
No worries. Happy to be here.
That was a long spiel.
Yes.
Lots to say. Well, Tim, we are curious about hearing a little bit more about your expertise, but if it's okay, just asking you, thinking back so many years, what brought you, I mean, that was really different times. What kind of caught your attention, or what brought you to learning, exploring mindfulness and then taking it further?
So I sort of fell into it. I was a very anxious young person, and I was an actor. So I had massive, just being an actor. Why would you be an actor when you're anxious? Like, it was insane. So, and I had some really good mates who'd done, those 10-day Vipassana retreats, Goenka style Vipassana retreat. Some of you guys might have done a retreat like that or heard about it. So it's an intensive insight meditation retreat. And I thought, oh yeah, I'll go and do that. It's supposed to help with a few things. Very intense. Yes, very full on, but very demanding. But quite a marvelous discovery about my own anxiety, that I really learned, if I wasn't reactive to the horrible body sensations of anxiety, which we all know, the sweaty palms, the sort of heart rate, all those thoughts racing through your head. I really learned something about paying attention to that without reacting, even if it was really unpleasant. And that really opened my eyes to, well, it really helped me in my life from then on. But I didn't really get the significance of it. I knew if I meditated, I was much calmer. I could start noticing thoughts and come back to the body sensations, all the sort of things we teach in a kind of secular mindfulness program. But, and I did a couple more of those in my 20s. Sucker for punishment, they're really full on. And then later on got involved in a Zen practice, so I did a lot of Zen retreats and came late to kind of John Kabat-Zinn. Well, yeah, in my late 30s, I suppose, found out about John's work and really got enthused about learning how to teach this stuff, because it was really entering, like MBCT was depression. The book had just been published, and I thought, yeah, this is powerful. And I was a psychotherapist, so I thought, I really want to bring this more into my work. So I went and trained in the US and, started teaching MBSR.
Wow. And then you brought it over to Australia.
Yes.
Thank you so much for doing that, because that brought me into as well. So I learned it here. Yeah. Oh, wow. And that's such a long journey / adventure, I suppose, going through the commitment and hearing about the retreats that you had to do, the investment, the commitment that you kind of signed up for. Pretty amazing. How, this development and immersing yourself more and more into it, how did that then lead to becoming a teacher, and why?
Yeah, I suppose I got the retreat experience. I mean, I don't know how many of you guys have done retreats, but it's a really powerful experience that started opening me up to the deeper potential of this work, and to really, I suppose, meditating more, getting more into retreats. It really opens your heart to kind of everything and becomes more of a way of living than anything. And it was when I got interested in teaching because I had been teaching psychotherapy, actually, and that chapter sort of finished, and I thought, oh, what else am I going to teach? Because I love doing therapy, but I love teaching. And then I read it, looked at the MBCT work, John Kabat-Zinn's work, and I thought, oh, I can teach this. And when I went to the States, after being there a few days, actually, I went up to the teacher and I said, I know how to teach this. And she said, yes, I know, I can see you do. It was like I was born to teach this course. It was so funny. I mean, it felt very personally freeing to find something that I felt so passionate about and felt so, when you have a lot of hard work to do, but it's effortless because you love it. I hope we've all had that experience in some way. But that's what I had about this. I just went insane for it. And a bit like you again, and you've done the same thing in a way. Yeah. You've got just that love of it carries you forth, and it's not effortful. So that took me into becoming a teacher, and then the people in the States gave me permission to start training people here. So, and then I met Maura Kenny, Dr. Maura Kenny. Some of you may know her. She's an absolute darling, beautiful person, a psychiatrist in Adelaide, and she And I founded along with Eva Papadopoulou, founded the Institute for Teaching Teachers. So, yeah, it's been marvellous. Mm.
Yeah, and really important and wonderful. I'm sure there is so much more to talk about in that regard, Tim, but it's really lovely to hear how this developed. And over the many years teaching mindfulness, and I hear, I hear lots of people who benefit personally from the practice of mindfulness, they think, oh, I really also want to contribute and bring it to the community. I want to become a teacher, or I just, grab what we've learned here in the MBSR course and teach others. What would you say? How would you encourage people what to do with their passion as well, and where to go from there?
This is a beautiful question. I remember when John Kabat-Zinn came over here and his 7-day training, and there were lots of people, that was their first immersion in mindfulness, and it was the introduction to training, and people were saying, I love this work, I want to do it. And people said, what should I do to start teaching? And John said, well, firstly, do a retreat. And he said, no, do 4 retreats. So fairly demanding, a beautiful sensibility. So I suppose I really think it's important to really have trod the path a bit, quite a bit for yourself, and have it as a kind of main paradigm of living before we start to teach other people. Otherwise, it can just be, it's not rocket science, you can read a book and get an understanding of it in order to tell other people about it. But to really engage and inquire into practice, I think you really have to have practiced a bit yourself. So I think that's important. Yeah.
Absolutely. And yes, so that's an invitation, everyone who's listening to this and considering a path. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure there are a few here who've done a few retreats. Yes, and but Tim, then in reality, so I meet lots of people very enthusiastic, also benefiting to a certain degree from mindfulness, but then struggling with keeping up with their commitment to the practice. When we do the MBSR courses, for example, we invite people to put time aside on a daily basis and really sort of have a bit longer experience of particular meditations. And sometimes people come back and really report they struggle with making the time. They want to be a teacher, but they struggle themselves making time and practicing mindfulness. And I'm just curious about, what do you say if someone tells you, I don't have any time to do it?
Well, it's just not true. Because we're always, life can be insane, can't it, with the amount of demands we have and how things are structured in this, late capitalism time of the way work's structured, the way families are structured. So very few people have no time. Over the time I've taught MBSR, there's very few people who haven't actually got time. But some people don't have time. If you've got 3 kids under 5 and you work full time, you don't have time. I'd say don't do the course or don't try and meditate. Work 2 days less or something. There's many other solutions to some problems. But most people, just think about us. Do we spend time online? Do we spend time on Facebook or Twitter? Do we spend time ruminating about a whole lot of stuff? If we can, I just think the no time thing, if I was to give everybody here $1,000 every time they did a half an hour practice, 3,500 in a week, everyone would do it, right? So we do have time. It's about motivation, isn't it? And one of the problems with mindfulness, unless it's interesting, the more you immerse yourself in it, the less reactive you are to the kind of practice you're having. So it's tricky when we're starting, I think, because we sit down to do it, or we lie down to do it, and we're bored, or we have a pain in a certain part of the body, or we have these insane thoughts, just worrying about what I should be doing with this time if you have a very busy life. So it's a very strange thing to do, to sit there and be with those unpleasant things, right? So unless we've kind of it's a preparedness to be with what arises in the practice, perhaps, and having some theory. This is where the course, like MBSR or MBCT, or having a little bit of theory behind you, that these pleasant and unpleasant things are going to come. Like, it's not the practice that's making me have all these rudimentary thoughts or have the back pain. It's there anyway. So how about I investigate it and see if I can loosen it up? But if you haven't got that understanding, you might just go, oh, I'm bored, I'm not going to do it. Mm. The other thing, Regina, which really, it's about what you're doing here. This practice was made to do with others. So I think it's brilliant, and especially now there's so many online offerings, to just have a practice group that you can attend every week. Whether it's a Buddhist group or any other kind of, orientation, but there's so much online now. Gather with other people, so it sort of helps you stay there, helps you. The other thing I notice is often people do a course like MBCT and then don't pursue anything, don't then read or don't get online or don't, pursue other things. And I think it's something to be cultivated. It's like if you learned how to play tennis, you wouldn't just do one little course. You'd actually go and get a tennis club, wouldn't you, and do it every week. So it's a bit like that, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. And it's such an amazing invitation opportunity that, people have if they go beyond their no time concern.
Yeah.
And you sort of, you mentioned a few things there, and also the motivation. Maybe we could just hear, first of all, we talk about mindfulness and we hear and see it everywhere. And even in our clinical fields, you see clients, I see clients, and it's always, just do mindfulness, and then everything will be all right. I'm a bit concerned about that. What's your definition of mindfulness? What is that?
Oh, that's a hard thing.
I know.
I mean, and a definition doesn't. Oh, there's so much depth there, isn't there? One could try and draw on if one had if one wasn't old. I think maybe rather than a definition, which I could say is purposefully attending to experience with an open heart and with precision. I think precision is really important. Precision isn't just, it's not just any old paying attention. We are trying to actually see into our experience as it unfolds. But more importantly, I think, Regina, the answer to that question is something along the lines of, it's not a thing, it really is a practice. And it's not just an idea, and it is bandied around by lots of people who are just being distracted by the
comments. Yeah, I see that.
Yes.
Someone has some sound issues.
Okay, yeah.
So,
but the main thing is to pursue it. Like, it's not just do mindfulness, makes it sounds like that if we just drop into the present moment, that's going to do something for us. But actually, one needs to train up a little bit, have a bit of context for why am I paying attention? Because for many of us, the present moment is awful. It could be full of anxiety or depression or chronic pain or irritation. So if we don't have any way of actually working with those phenomena, it's just like, that doesn't do any good. We're really, and I think there's two orientations to the unpleasant that we learn when we do a program of mindfulness, which is, one is really learning how to investigate and not react to phenomena, to sounds, to body sensations, to what we might call emotions, or the kind of cognitive events happening, thoughts or images or memories. And the other orientation, of course, is care, compassion, tenderness towards ourselves. So, and that in both of those things involve a bit of time and kind of practice and investigation. They're not just, be compassionate to yourself, or, have more equanimity with your unpleasant events happening. Just can't be decided like that. It actually needs to be a process, and it can be a really great, it's more helpful, I think, when you have a live teacher to nut this stuff out with, and a live bunch of people. who are actually grappling and interested in the same thing. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I'm hearing it is also just trusting that process and having faith in approaching and embracing the experience. And
yeah. And to do that just by yourself, I don't know, like you haven't got any context for it somehow.
yeah.
So that's why I really encourage people to find a context where there's other people grappling with the same thing and learning together, and having contact with the teacher, I think is great.
Yeah, that helps, like connecting with others and sort of supporting each other maybe as well in that, exploring this, what does it actually really means, and this, in that, what you said, I hear people come back and say, I couldn't, my mind was so restless. I'm sure you hear that a lot as well. My mind was busy, I couldn't switch off, and I stopped practicing. And I mean, you outlined, sort of the invitation to observe and be visit. But do you see there's also, I think often here people come with the expectation to make this all go away. Do you see a difference between setting an intention rather than expectation for the practice?
Yeah, so that's so interesting. I mean, and it's natural, isn't it? For when something's unpleasant, like restlessness or a really busy mind or a pain in the back, it's so natural and adaptive to want to get rid of it. We are hardwired to move away from the unpleasant and towards the pleasant. So it's pretty reasonable that you'd come and you're doing this kind of strenuous thing that hopefully it's going to help, right? But it's sort of a how to hold that lightly and then investigate. So the invitation is, okay, I'm doing this practice in order to help my anxiety. I certainly came to it for that. But the method of how you help your anxiety is to investigate it. And sometimes people think that the intention or the purpose of the practice, which is to help us feel more peaceful, calm, spacious, is the method. So they sit down and try and feel more peaceful, spacious, calm. It's not there. What's there is the mind we've got, the body we've got, and we're anxious and jumpy and everything. So if we really separate out the kind of intention, purpose, I want to be more calm, spacious, peaceful, then the method is to do the practice. And the practice is to investigate what it's like to be you in this moment. What is restlessness like in the body? Really specifically, what's it like in my throat, in my cheek, in my eyes, in my jaw? What's it like in my chest? And what are the kind of mental stuff that go on when I'm restless or anxious? What are the kind of thoughts? They're a lot about the future, not so much about the past. Okay, that's interesting. I'm somehow trying to prepare for the future. And what's it like? And that's when the present moment invitation becomes meaningful. And also the invitation to notice where you're placing your intention. Often anxious folk, and I've been one for many years, I know all about it. Like when I was an actor, we would be starting a rehearsal period of 4 weeks and the play was going to be in 4 or 5 weeks. And I would be thinking of that opening night. Like I'd have diarrhea 20 times a day. Like so I had body symptoms. I had this mind that could not stop going to the future. So if you're in a mindfulness practice and you're addressing and getting to know your anxiety, you're just going to be noticing that. And you've got some capacity or some choice then to be able to come back to this moment, which includes this body, this space in front of me, this wind on my cheek. So there's something to you train up so that you can actually have some choice. Notice your pattern first of all. Unless you notice it, we're lost. But if you can notice it, then you can have a little bit of orientation to how I respond to this pattern, how I help it transform. And it may be for really anxious people that they do quite a bit of movement practice, or listen to the nervous system. Go for a run before you sit down and practice. It's not like we're trying to force the body or the mind to be a certain way. But if you listen to your pattern, this is what I find when people haven't done much training in it, they're not listening for their pattern. They're saying, I should be able to do this technique and feel better. But it is about an intelligent understanding of your pattern. Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
To me, totally, it makes sense. And I hope, people who are listening, sort of, it's quite inspiring way of sort of how to attend and how to maybe grasp this way of being and putting it into practice. And I'm hearing there's also the invitation to be creative, and I could be wrong, rather than just force yourself into practice. Also take note of the beginning of it or the transitioning into it. You may need a run, or you may even need a nap before you begin with the meditation practice. This is also about safety, isn't it? How oneself looks after themselves.
Yeah. And if we think of it more than a technique to do something to yourself, think of it more like an intimacy with yourself. So you can spend half an hour having a meeting with yourself. You have a meeting. You're going to meet this self. You're going to meet these thoughts, heart, body, and would you do that like, oh, I'm at a meeting, I've just got to pay attention. Like, so often we can get into a habit of our mindfulness practice. I'm doing this thing, but the precision and the intimacy is lost. We're not actually saying, hello, how are you today? What's going on? What's bugging you? What matters today? You're feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling exhausted as you sit here. You're like, what's that? It's actually an inquiry practice. It's not like a technique that we're on top of something. We're actually setting aside space to be with a good friend, hopefully, befriending ourselves.
Yeah.
And it's like if we have a beloved dog or a beloved child or a beloved partner, and you're going to spend a good half an hour with them, and say they're in a not a great mood, or the kid's really fractious, you're not going to say, I just bugger off then. I'm not interested in you because you like that. You're going to say, oh no, come here. Let me hear more. What's bugging you? What's upsetting you? Sit with me. And I think this attitude with practice, it's such a different generosity towards yourself, rather than this constricting and trying to make yourself into a certain mindful person, or if only I do this technique, I'm going to somehow be a better person or feel better. It's a bit of a heart sink, that kind of way of practicing. If we think about it as a listening session, I'm going to hear myself. That's so opening, isn't it? So helpful.
Yes, and there's a lot of kindness, a very, the kindness, the softness you bring to yourself. Sort of, you mentioned that about befriending, and that in itself, if we are able to apply and employ this, it's sort of, that already creates maybe a sense of ease. Sort of takes off that forcefulness to do it a certain way, right?
Yeah.
And I wonder, and the more it creates some sort of spaciousness, Tim, I often sort of, what really, really resonates a lot is the invitation that you often put out. All parts are welcome. And I just wonder, such a beautiful, but also a very radical invitation.
Yes.
What you mean by that?
I don't know about you and all of us, but I'm sure we're pretty much the same. So when I sit down to practice, or I'm going about my life, there are a whole lot of me's. There's a whole lot of parts of me that some of them who I'd be happy to really share with you guys, and some of them I'd feel a bit embarrassed to share. I've got, parts of me that are ashamed, or greedy, or sometimes despairing about the world, or, all these parts of me. There might be irritated parts, or parts with a part of me that might be over enthusiastic, dominates, takes over. There's all these parts of us, right? And I think, how do we honor that? Like, we're all the same. I hope as I'm saying all this, you guys are going, yep. There's a striving part. There's a part that wants to look like a really good mindfulness practitioner. And I want to be very kind. That's a part of me. And there's an unkind part of me. So what am I to do? I think, who's the poet? He says, I can't remember his name, but he says something like, so I contradict myself. Yes, I contradict myself. I contain multitudes. This idea, and it fits very beautifully in with Buddhist psychology, that we're not just one, sustainable kind of self. We've got all these different bits of us that we're a dynamic system. And I think meditation is the perfect space a few times a week to sit down and be aligned, like listen to that system rather than trying to coerce it to be like one of the parts of the system. You know, how about we actually listen deeply to what's in the system, all the different parts. And we've all got really vulnerable parts of ourselves. And we've all got really managerial parts of ourselves that want things to be a certain way. And we've also got parts of ourselves that are quite sort of reactive when we're under threat, you know. And we've got parts of ourselves that want to sedate through drinking and oversleeping and, you know, taking drugs. You know, we've all got parts that are, and that's our whole system. And I just think meditation's a beautiful place to invite all of your parts to have their say. And they're going to be doing it anyway, right? You sit down and try and pay attention to the breath or the body, and you've got all these parts. They're all just going, but you didn't do that thing. Oh, God, that was so embarrassing yesterday when you did that. You really should have tried to hide that in that meeting because that was really, you know, all these parts are in the meditation anyway, right?
Yeah.
But we have this idea that in the meditation we should banish them. So I think, yeah, really welcoming all the parts is a beautiful metaphor, isn't it, for befriending all the bits of ourselves. Like, they're there anyway.
Yeah.
As far as I've been able to, they haven't been able to be banished. They can be, when you offer them understanding, I find that they calm and settle. They're still part of me. They're still going to pop up under the right circumstances, but they don't have to be in the driver's seat so much.
Yeah.
But that is not through banishing them or pretending they're not there. It's really like, oh, let me investigate my shame. Let me investigate my greedy part. You know.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful invitation to see it that way, and you're quite right. You know, it's like, you know, someone wants, or some part wants attention, and if it doesn't feel it's heard, right, then it, you know, it pops up again and again. It's again an opportunity or invitation for us to listen to it more deeply.
Exactly. Yeah.
And once it feels understood, then it's calming.
Yeah. Thich Nhat Hanh has that beautiful metaphor of our emotions, our distressed emotions are like a crying child. And if you just keep flicking it away or putting it out the door, it just cries louder and louder and louder, or falls into depression, despair. But if you can invite that child onto your lap, that's what meditation's for, maybe, inviting all the parts onto our lap and, you know, really holding them and listening to them. Wow. And such ease can come then, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tim, before, I'm mindful of our time and your time, and before we perhaps get an opportunity, you guiding a short meditation with us, there's this one part that I often feel is important to mention. You know, there are so many parts, and there might be a part more or less traumatized in us. And, you know, is it then the right thing to do mindfulness? Is there anything, I mean, that's, you know, perhaps, again, another big topic, but something that comes to mind that you would like to highlight or make people aware of or consider when practicing mindfulness?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question and an important one, you know, as we learn more about trauma and meditation. And I think if we really consider meditation to be paying attention in an open-hearted way with some precision, then it doesn't all have to be done with closed eyes, sitting in stillness. That's a kind of preferred monastic variety. But like the trauma-sensitive yoga stuff is really orienting people to feel a sense of agency in doing a movement. So that's meditation, in my opinion. MBSR, MBCT, yeah, I know you know about the movement practice is profound for people who have a lot of flooding of memories about things that are difficult in life. And lots of us have had difficult things in life. And if we sit down, closed eyes, you know, in this sort of setting where you're supposed to be being a certain way, you may well get evocative kind of memories. But to give people there's so many different ways of practicing. So through movement, through keeping your eyes open, through continually orienting. I mean, what a brilliant thing. If people keep having a kind of flashback experience, brilliant training to close the eyes for 10 seconds, open the eyes and orient. This moment with this person, with this nice tree here. Closing, opening again. So that orienting to the present moment very actively might be the form of meditation you do. Why not? That's enough.
Yeah. And
anchoring. Anchoring and using the practice as just that orienting inwards and outwards, and having a choice about where you place your attention. Really.
And how much you're actually really also noticing how much you're able to tolerate, or when you have to close and protect it a little bit, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
That there is choice.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's where the movement stuff is so powerful, because you can, many of the experiences in the trauma-sensitive yoga are really inviting people into a movement and emphasizing the choice. So do you want to stay here longer? Does it feel like you want to do more? Or does it really feel like you want to bring your arm down? Your choice. And that you don't even talk about trauma, but it's that very choice that's being evoked, and people starting to feel their bodies. This is how I feel. I want to do that again. Or no, I don't. I want to do this instead. It's just brilliant. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. So there's something to explore, and doing this step by step, and there might be moments when you're not feeling up to it at all, and that is okay.
Yes,
it's okay, right?
Exactly. And go for a walk. That can be a beautiful mindfulness practice instead.
Well, everyone, I'm sure you perhaps have a few questions, but maybe sometimes they just bubble up afterwards, as we all know. And I would have so many more questions, but I'm also really interested in, if that's okay, Tim, if you could lead maybe 10, 12 minutes.
Cool.
A practice with us. I will take myself, I'm here, but I close down my screen, so it's yours. And once you finish, I come back and we wrap it up together. Would that be all right?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay.
Let me just, cool.
Sitting in front of a computer. So let's just orient to this posture that you're in. So maybe shifting the focus from the visual, maybe even closing your eyes if that feels okay to you. And really feeling into your seat. Feeling the weight of your body. And it can be really helpful to get a sense of the body by simply moving in the way we've been speaking. So maybe just beginning to have a little sway from side to side. Bringing the weight more into one side, one sit bone, buttock, thigh. And then going through middle ground and then over to the other side. And just noticing how moving really helps us attend, helps us place our attention in the body when we offer it a little bit more activity. And feeling free to keep moving in this way, swaying from side to side and letting your spine maybe be part of that, and letting the head and neck be part of the spine as well. And just noticing what it's like. I've been exploring this beautiful image of a seagrass in moving like this. And then if it's okay for you, you can keep moving, or you may want to come into relative stillness. And the body is such a rich place to place our attention. So just noticing the arrangement of your limbs and head and neck. And a really helpful place to place our attention in practice is with a sense of breathing. So just bringing your attention to the experience of breathing in this moment. Noticing we can notice breathing with the nostrils, the mouth, where we take in and release the air. We can notice breathing in the movement of the chest or the diaphragm and belly. And as you pay attention to the breathing, you may notice a subtle expansion or increase of your size, maybe a little uplift through the shoulders and spine on the in-breath. And then a softening, releasing, maybe even becoming smaller on the out-breath. So this is the capacity for interoception that we've been paying attention to, the capacity to know body sensations. But this isn't the only thing that's happening in this moment. So opening to our other senses, first of all, hearing. Opening to our capacity for hearing right now. Hearing my voice and other computer noises. But also hearing the sounds in your environment. No need to go out and grab them. Just letting them come to you. And maybe opening up to sensing of taste and smell in this moment. This is also happening in this moment alongside hearing and interoception of the body. And the other thing that's we've got the capacity to pay attention to, which is a kind of sense, is we can sense mental events, we can sense thoughts arising. And thoughts can either be verbal or visual. So just noticing, just as you were noticing hearing and tasting and the touch of the body, just opening up to sensing the flow of mental events. This is also happening in this moment. Nothing needs to be banished. Now, maybe connecting with your capacity for seeing. If you've got your eyes closed, you may want to open them and just taking this rectangle in front of us all. But also just opening up to the environment you're in, and maybe even turning your head a little bit to allow the eyes simply to see. And so often in our busy lives, whenever we're using our eyes, we're kind of using them like stalks, like we're having to go out and grasp information and make sense of it and somehow deal with it, manage it. So how about we take this opportunity to simply receive the visual information, like really letting the eyes be soft. Letting the eyes rest. And letting your head move gently so you can just receive information with light and colour, spaces. Maybe really noticing the difference of having to use your eyes to go and get stuff in the environment. Or when you can really let your eyeballs rest in their sockets and simply receive all the visual information that's landing on your eyeballs. And just noticing what this kind of practice we've just dipped into, which is about opening to the six senses. It's what it's offered you. What does it feel like to deliberately pay attention to this moment with all its vividness? Tastes that are here, smells, the sounds, the sights. All the good body information we're receiving, which also tells us about how we're feeling emotionally. Just holding all of this as it comes and goes in awareness. No need to hold on to any of it, to fix it. But just noticing a constant stream of contact being made with your organism and being there to receive it, to become aware of it, to know it, including thoughts, images. No need to banish anything. And maybe taking a moment of appreciation for making this time for yourself to gather like this. and also appreciation for having these senses, to be able to take in the world, to be touched by the world. One of my favourite little sayings is from St. John of the Cross, and he says, "Tenderly I now touch all things, knowing we soon must part." Maybe that we can take that forth in our day, tenderly touching, being touched by all things as they pass through us. And then maybe making any movement that you'd like to make.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regina. It's been really lovely to see you.
Yeah. Likewise. I don't know whether anyone feels up to sort of typing something into the chat box and has a question or a comment. Tim, just letting you know, I tried this many times in the past, but people just prefer not to.
I know.
So and that's okay.
So it's nice to share our own experience. Yeah. Right.
Thank you so much for sort of weaving in that soft invitation to move a little bit. We often think, when we have to do this big movement, but actually it can be, such a variety and connecting with our senses. Well, yes, so I don't see anyone having a question up here, and that's okay. I apologize if people had some sound issues, but it looks like that the majority was all right. I don't know whether you see this comment, Tim.
Yes.
Thank you very much and enjoy the meditation session. Thank you for sharing this with us. So, Tim, I hope we can keep in touch, and I hope everyone is really felt inspired by what you shared with us, and sort of having this, conversation, or you more talking about a few things, which is really sort of for inspiration, and letting this, as I said, weave into your practice, and be kind to yourself, and keep those encouragement, words of encouragement, gestures of encouragement, also in mind and body as you continue. And as we are concluding here, as we know, it's not the end of it, it continues and it flows into each and everything, we actually really do. Thank you so much, Tim, and I hope that people feel inspired and who perhaps part of the MBSR or MBCT programs and maybe want to take it further. I just wonder, Tim, are you doing any online trainings at the moment? Because I sometimes get questions that people would like to take an MBSR course. Is there anything going on in Australia at the moment?
Yeah, we've got MBSR online. We've also got a free practice group for an hour and a half on Sundays, every Sunday. So you can just find that on the Open Ground website. You just sign up, and a bit like this actually, but it's an hour and a half. We do movement, sitting, and we have a chance to chat. I think it's at 4:30. And there's also an urban retreat, which happens every Saturday from 9 till 1. And it's on a topic. So we do topics like equanimity or compassion or anxiety, depression, that sort of stuff. So, and it's usually about 60 people come together, and we do a bit of teaching, but it's mostly silent. We do all sorts of practices, moving, walking, sitting, all sorts of teaching. And it's just it's $15 if you haven't got much money. I think 30 if you've got a job, and 4 hours of, and that's really been wonderful.
And we would find that information on Open Ground website.
Yeah, it's all on the website.
Typed it in, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, good. Cool.
Wonderful. I can only encourage everyone to sort of look it up. There are lots and lots of resources, and as Tim mentioned, the online sessions for deepening the practice, and also, cultivating and connecting with each other and supporting another. I think it's just another one that is so important, particularly during this time that we all have to deal with. And we didn't even get there, Tim, talking about COVID-19. Oh, well, next time, maybe, hopefully. It's all by then. Thank you so much. Yes, inspired, yes, encouraged. Thank you so much for sharing your comments and letting us know that you're here and participated. And Tim, really, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to you that you made some time and meeting us and teaching us and also guiding us through this wonderful drop-in meditation.
Yeah, real honor to be here. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you. Take good care.
See ya.
Goodbye, everyone.
See ya.